Welcome to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. I'm your host, Casey Garrett, and together we'll be discovering and learning from inspiring voices of healers, medicine keepers, and visionaries. Every episode, we'll explore the world of health, vibrant wellness, and natural medicine for a new era of human society. Welcome to today's episode. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to be here today. Vana, please share with me your last name.
My full name is Vanathy. Vana is perfect, and last name is Paranthaman.
Beautiful. I knew it would sound much better coming from your lips. So thank you so much. Beautiful. So I saw Vana speak at a conference, and she really arrested me with her authenticity. Her talk was very, very raw, very honest, very open. And, the field right now is so full of idealism and marketing. And she's very upfront about the shadows of and the authenticity and the realness of this work. And so those of you who are watching today know this very well. And so I just appreciated her voice so much. I'm really excited to have her here today. I have so many things I have to ask her. So I'm really looking forward to introducing her to all of you. And Puppy Thomas is also joining us today. really wanted to be here during this interview. So thank you, Vana, so much. Just to open with, I would love to have you talk a bit about your role and your work at Conscious Mind Clinic. And you guys are based in Vancouver, correct? Vancouver, Canada?
Yes.
Awesome.
We're based in Vancouver, yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor to be here. So I am a registered nurse by background, and I work at a clinic called Conscious Mind Clinic. And what our goal is to be able to provide legal above ground psilocybin therapy. And we're trying to stay away from the clinical setting. We do understand that there's a certain level of clinical protocols we're going to have to follow with the legalization. And we also really understand, no one really understands the medicine, but we appreciate the medicine. We appreciate that there's more to it than just taking a pill and getting better. So we're trying to infuse both the spiritual practices. So in a way, we're infusing East and West and all of the other traditional practices. And we're trying to create something within the system, but not actually engulfed by the system, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to all of us. And yeah, your website's beautiful and really articulates what's a very challenging thing to articulate. And you guys have done that very, very well. Yeah. And you're also working with an organization called Theracil. Most of our community are based here in the United States and may not have heard of Theracil. They're doing gorgeous work. Can you talk a little bit about Theracil and your role with them?
Yes. Theracil, I've been fangirling Theracil for quite some time. I did their training about 2 years ago. So Theracil is the leading advocacy agency in Canada right now that is pushing for legal psilocybin access to basically everyone. And we're trying to find ways to involve the government and challenge them in terms of how they're allowing access. So part of that is the advocacy, and the other part is we actually have a wonderful training program for providers, for healthcare practitioners. And what I love about the training program, it actually has all of these other elements that I haven't seen in other training programs where we really go into the spirit of the medicine. There is the clinical part of it. It's a bit of training and a bit of advocacy. And what we've seen happen actually tomorrow, we're going to have our first set of 6 patients get legal psilocybin therapy in Ontario, which is a province in Canada. And without the lawyers, without the physicians, without all of the other Theracil team members, this wouldn't be possible. So I'm very honored to be part of this team. And Theracil and Conscious Mind are also joining forces. And that's what we're realizing. What we need to do is actually join forces instead of competing with each other. The mycelial network, right? We need to learn from the mycelial network. And so we're actually bringing that forth through both of these companies.
Amazing. Yes. Really, really good point. There's so much going on. Everything's moving so quickly. It's so important to connect in all so we can find and partner with each other rather than trying to reinvent the wheel individually.
Yes,
We can get much
exactly.
farther, much faster together. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I have been dying to ask my next question, which is, what is going on in Canada? You know, from from our vantage point here in the States, in many ways it seems like Canada is leading the way and has been so progressive on this issue, and really just strong advocacy in the government, among politicians, and right to try, and the use of medicines for palliative care. There's strong movement in Canada. And then also, having been to Canada recently, there's shops, like you can walk in to places in Vancouver, and there's medicine on the shelves to buy. And it's so, on one hand, it's like, is this already legalized? Is it decriminalized? Or what's actually going on up there? What is the status in the country?
Right. So in terms of legal status, it isn't legalized. There has been a huge push for decriminalization federally, provincially in BC, for certain substances. Unfortunately, psilocybin wasn't a part of it. That being said, this is not official. However, the city of Vancouver in particular, which is where you were at, and you would have seen all of these dispensaries popping up. We have quite a few. My favorite is actually the Coca Leaf Cafe. I have no sponsorship or anything affiliation with them. I just love that they sell coca leaves. And so I prefer that to coffee. But in Vancouver, it's a little bit of an unsaid rule that everyone's just turning a blind eye. And so I don't know how true this is. So I don't want to share information that may not be accurate, but through the grapevine, this is what I see, because there's a lot of underground practices, but they're not really underground. They're quite above ground. And so it is a little bit different here. And I do have to say, when it comes to moving forward legally, and I am biased and I am partial to Theracil, I believe Theracil has done a huge job in this advocacy piece. And so just to give you a little example, we did apply. So in order for patients to get legal access, what they have to do is a physician has to fill out something called a Section 56. Either a Section 56 exemption or a special access program. Right now, we're working with the special access program. And so what happens is we fill it out, we send it in. And what we've done at Theracil is marry the legal and medical team. And we work very closely together. And so when an application is rejected, we then now have the ability to pull the legal team in. And a lot of us are working voluntarily. We're passionate about this, right? And we pull the legal team in and we pressure the government. And we're like, hey, what are you doing? So a perfect example is the government was accepting people for treatment-resistant depression, and all of a sudden stopped accepting it. And they started saying, well, you need to do ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. And we went back with, so what you're telling me is we got to force our patients to do something. And there's a lot of benefits to it. So I'm not going to, poo-poo that therapy. And simultaneously, it's a fairly intensive therapy. So you shouldn't be forced into it. And so when we go back with that, what we did was we legally went after them, and then we got the media involved. The moment the media got involved, it was immediately, okay, here you go, here's your acceptance. So that's what's been happening. There's been some pressure being applied to the governments. And then even one of the arguments, because in Canada, we have something called medically MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. And so basically it helps, and especially with people at end of life experiencing extreme levels of pain. I think it's your individual. I do believe in the individual choice. However, what the government was trying to implement was made for mental health issues. And so it's like, so you're telling us that we have the right to die over a treatment that could potentially help us live. And so once we brought that pressure in, immediately the government's like, oh, well, okay, I guess we got to listen, right? So they're saving face. So that's kind of what's happening in Canada. And I truly think Theracil has a major part to play in that.
Awesome. Yeah, really extraordinary work. Yeah, thank you. Another question I was so excited to ask you was, you have the unique experience of, you work with plant and earth medicines, but you also work with ketamine. And
Mm-hmm.
at least here in the United States, I can attest, like so many people are rushing to ketamine because it's so widely available now and it's the only legal
Mm-hmm.
option in many, many places. So I would
Mm-hmm.
love to hear firsthand from someone who has worked with ketamine as well as other substances. What do you see, in what circumstances do you find ketamine most effective from just what you
Mm.
have seen?
Right. And so thank you for that question. I think it's a really important question because one of the reasons why ketamine is so widely used right now is simply because of the legality status, right? And I love ketamine and everything has its context, everything has its place. I don't necessarily think the way we're utilizing it right now is. I worked for a company that I won't name the company, but it's basically it's being treated as a drug, right? And we're coming into this space because we want to move away from that model of like pharmacology. And it's just understanding there's a time and place for everything. And what's happening is ketamine is being utilized in that old school model with the medical model. And I'm not saying there's no use to it. So ketamine is really useful, especially if someone is acutely suicidal. Ketamine is very, very useful in those cases. Ketamine is also useful for treating depression. However, like with any particular medicine in the space, it's not the medicine alone that does the work. If we're not doing the work with the medicine, what I share with my clients, and I'm sure you share this with your community, is that the medicine meets us at our strength. So if we just show up and expecting the medicine to do all the work, it's just going to be like, okay, maybe I'll give you a few benefits, but you're going to have to give something too, right? And so what I'm finding is uh, ketamine is being utilized in spaces simply because all of the other medicines aren't available. I'm not saying it's not as effective. It's just with ketamine, you have to do a lot more work with it in order to find the benefit of it. And I don't see that piece happening with a lot of companies. What they're doing is you have depression, here, take some ketamine, off you go. And of course, you feel better for a few days, but what about the long-term shifts? Well, the long-term shifts actually come with the other, like with the integration, with the lifestyle modification, with all of those other pieces. And I don't tend to see that happening too much in the community yet. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yes, it's very insightful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Absolutely, it does. Speaking of, I'd love for you to, I know you believe strongly as we do that it's just not about the medicine. You know, that's the medicine is
Mm-hmm.
just a piece of the practice. And it's really kind of an ignition of what is innately inside you all
Mm-hmm.
along. So the container that you hold this medicine practice in is equally as important. So I'd love to
Yep.
hear about your approach from as you welcome a new client, kind of in the context. Do you do
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one work? Do you do group work? Do you do couples work? I'd love for you to
Mm-hmm.
share how you hold your containers.
Thank you for asking that. I truly, as you were asking, the first thing that came to me is that it starts with me. It starts with how I take care of myself. It starts with how much of the work am I doing on my own. And that is a major part of the container. And I don't know if, I know in this space, there's some people that are really staying true to that, but I don't know if that's always the case. And so I feel like if this part of the container isn't taken care of, it bleeds into the space. And being human, it's going to bleed into the space regardless. It's not like I can put a veil on and make sure there's no energetic transfer. But I know if I'm doing the work that I'm able to either catch it as it's happening and do something about it, or just be more aware, be more mindful when I show up. So I say that it always starts here. And then it's the actual physical space, making sure the space is energetically cleansed, keeping it clean, and not allowing it to get infected. And I feel like this crowd would know what that means. And then when it comes to receiving the patient, I really do, or client, see, I'm a nurse, so I keep going back and forth, or journeyer is what I like to call. I really have found that starting with microdosing, especially with people that have never worked with the medicine, is a really great way. And so it takes a longer period of time. So I'm working with them over the course of the month. So they basically get 4 preparatory sessions at the least. And that's not even including the prep sessions for the medicine itself, right? So, and what I find is in that time period, it's creating that connection back to the body. so that when you're in the medicine, it's the work that we do outside of the medicine that shows up in the medicine, and it's the work that we should do in the medicine that shows up outside. So there's no delineation between the two. And so what I do is really get people to understand, what does a state of dysregulation feel like? So let's get you triggered. And then also, what does it feel like to have a panic attack? What does it feel like to want to run away? What does all this feel like? And then what are the tools that we didn't get in childhood? What are the tools that we may never have developed? We work with those tools. And with the intent that when this shows up in the medicine, and it will, we have the ability to sit with the discomfort. So one of the things that I really like to work on with my clients is to get them quite uncomfortable. And this also comes from my own personal practice. I call it planned discomfort. The planned discomfort, when I'm practicing it regularly, the rest of my life is quite good, because when life hits me, I already know how to regulate. I already know how to sit with the discomfort. I already know how not to run away. So that's the kind of mindset that I came in with, the whole making people feel uncomfortable and then teaching them how to sit with the discomfort and giving the tools to work through the discomfort. So that's the container I create in the sessions prior to. And then because of my background, I do a medical history. So I really go into in depth with the medications that they're on, the supplements that they're on. And then also, well, have you had a physical? What was your blood results like? Well, if you have a low B12 level and you're having foggy memory and you might be having depression, we want to correct the B12 level, because you can do all the medicine journeys in the world. If your B12 is low, your B12 is low, right? So I really like, and this is where I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater with the Western system either. So there's a way to marry all of these practices. I haven't figured it all out, but I'm just trying to see, like, well, how do I not, because I did go through a phase where I rejected the Western medicine. And I'm like, well, we wouldn't be here without Western medicine. So it's like, okay, how do I utilize the benefits of that? And so even on my intake form, all of that stuff, we really go into all of, like, the psychosocial, spiritual, everything, and the body, and physically the lab work too. I read the lab work, I look at the medications, and then I also help people afterwards with the integration process. It's like, do you want to continue with these medications? Are they actually benefiting you? So even in the integration process, we talk about how to come off of these medicines. How do we get off of blood pressure medicines? How do we get off of diabetes medications? As a nurse, I can't discontinue. However, I can give the wisdom to help them come off of it if they choose. So yeah, I think I would just kind of ramble there, but it's this, I really try to take a holistic approach, and the holistic approach also involves the Western medical system, but the healthy parts of it are the parts that I'm trying to keep.
Oh, that was articulated so beautifully. I see it even in our community, is a lot of times one of the extremely positive aspects of group work is we have such blind spots, and so it is a 360 view of our life and our lifestyles that sometimes we miss these other elements of being, maybe you're low on B12, or maybe a really, really common one that happens with microdosing practice. We work with mushroom practice, and it's very, very common for people to stop drinking alcohol. They just do. It just happens, even when it's not their intention to do so. And in the early weeks and months of microdosing practice, oftentimes they'll stop drinking and they'll complain they feel really sluggish and tired and almost fluish. And they tend to blame the mushrooms, because that's the new aspect of their life that they've added into their life. But when they share in the group and, people reflect and ask questions, come to realize, well, they stopped drinking alcohol, and prior to their stopping, they were drinking 2 or 3 drinks every single day, which, depending on the person is, that's a lot or not at all. And what we learn is, of course, you're feeling sluggish. Your body's detoxing alcohol, and it really has nothing to do with the mushrooms. And the mushrooms are actually supporting you in your mood and your stable, energy while you're going through that detox process. So I love that. It's so important. And I love the concept of Conscious Mind Clinic, of bringing all these diverse practitioners around under one roof to support people together. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's beautiful. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
curious, is all your work one-to-one work, or do you guys work with couples as well? Or, um,
So right as of right now, it is mostly one to one when it's working with medicine. There we do some group journeys, and then breath work also we do group journeys. So you just kind of touched, and I'm a little bit hesitant to share this, but I will. It's the first place I think I'm sharing it publicly. Is I've been wanting to do a matchmaking service for the last 10 years, and I want to do it conscious. And so using all the tools with the medicine, with all of the other work, like the somatic, all of that, want to bring it together in order to marry that. Because I know there's a lot of people out there looking for love, and it's just there's just a lot going on right now. And I really feel that that guidance is necessary. Where in the past we had elders that would have guided us through this process, that would have been able to show up that mirror, right? So that is coming in the future, both a matchmaking service and couples, because I also do couples counseling. I have the background in it, the training in it. So that is going to be coming. And actually, that's a really great place to inject ketamine, is a really powerful couples tool. So that's something that we've discussed. So we're not doing it right now, but it's something that will be happening in the future. And then the other piece that we're very, very strong on is community. So even if the sessions are individual, one of the things that we talk with all of our clients is that what is your community? What is the network? So the other piece that Conscious Mind tries to, it not tries to, is doing, is that communal support, that what we would have had in the past. I want to try, or we're trying to recreate it in the city. I don't know what it looks like, but part of it is literally bringing Theracil on board, working with the other clinics. So on an organizational level, we're building that community, and then on a physical level, so I do offer drop in. Like literally, this is for myself. I work quite long hours, and so in the evenings, a block of time where it's an hour, I'm just going to go to the front lobby and I'm going to stretch. You're more than welcome to come in and spend this time in community with someone. We don't have to talk. So there's stuff like that. And there's also communal projects that we work on. So the community is a major part of healing, and we take that very seriously here. And we're trying to build that into the entire, like, the atmosphere. I think of Conscious Mind is the best way to say it. It's intended to be a communal atmosphere. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. I mean, it's so exciting right now because we're, as the, people are collectively bumping up against the inefficiency and outdatedness of the systems. We're creating all these new systems of being in such creative ways. It's so much fun. And yeah, thank you. That's what it's all about right now. Beautiful. My next question is, we get asked a lot by beginners, should I go? I'm new and I kind of have my intention. Should I go on a retreat, like a bigger experience retreat, or should I start microdosing? And we often say both, both. There's a time and a place for both. The way I kind of look at it, I have a very long background in the healing arts, in yoga and body work and meditation. And I think both are so important because on one side, like a retreat experience takes you out of your ordinary life, and it's like a reset. It's kind of a deep dive, whether it's medicine practice or it's a meditation retreat. It will spark you and motivate you and take you to another level in a short amount of time. And then it's up to you to take that experience and integrate it back into your life. Versus a microdosing practice, I think in a lot of ways is just as powerful as a retreat experience, but it's more subtle in that it's more lasting, in that it gets to be integrated into your daily life. So that's why my answer is often both, because they're both really, really important. But like meditation, for example, sitting on the cushion for 10 minutes a day for 6 months is actually going to be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than going on a 10-day retreat 6 months from now, right? So I would love to hear about your retreat. I know you do one-on-one work and you do group work with retreat. So yeah, if you could talk about that, just kind of your experience of how you feel about that, of starting with one versus the other.
Right. So the retreat part, I'm actually just getting started with that. So, and plus, that's also going to be an avenue of conscious mind where when the legal, both on the legal realm and, yeah, anyways, not to get too much into that, but we are working on that as well. And so I have to say that I really appreciate what you brought up about the meditation, and the importance of the small steps over a longer period of time. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but this is so important. What I say that prepared me for my medicine journey was the 20 years of work I did prior to coming into medicine. So with the meditation, with the Vipassana, with all of the shadow work, all of that stuff is why when I came to the medicine, I mean, it still was an interesting experience the first time around, but I was prepared because my body was prepared for all of this. And so what I actually tell people is start a practice that doesn't even involve medicine at all immediately and just sit with that practice. And then yeah, both the microdosing, it has its certain type of benefit, because what I used to be one of those people that wanted to go from not working out to working out 6 days a week and just, have like everything just fall into place. I realized after, what am I, 38, after like 30 years of doing that, that may not really work that well. So then, what the analogy I like to use with my clients or the people that I work with is we just want to make, if we're a ship in the ocean, we're off by 1 degree. It doesn't seem like a lot at the moment, but in a year from now, it's lost. It's completely gone, right? So that's the effect of a 1 degree transformation. That can go either way, right? So if we're going in the wrong, quote unquote, wrong direction, what does that mean? I'm not sure, but then we know it's going to go that way. But that 1 degree course correction in 6 months, when we're doing all the things that we want to do, you're also somewhere completely different, right? And so that's the part that I really like to bring people's awareness to, is that we're looking for these grand things. Even people that come to the medicine, a lot of the times my work is around expectation management. And it's like, your expectations are up here, we're going to bring them all the way down here first. And so and that's why I do like the smaller steps. If you had asked me this 5 years ago, I would have been like, retreat all the way. You go in and you do the work and you unpack it and then you leave. And then, well, yeah, the integration piece sometimes get left out. So I do, and I don't try to prescribe anything to anyone. I really, when people come up to me with these questions, I usually turn back and I ask, why don't we ask the inner wisdom? What does that want us to do? And so I usually work with that inner wisdom to get them to come to their own answer. But if you're going to ask me to prescribe for you, what I would suggest is starting with the microdosing, understanding the spirit of the medicine, really connecting. Like, it's not a dieta really, but in a way it's like you're really connecting with the spirit of the medicine. You're understanding what's happening for you. You're really getting a visual of the life that you want to create. And then when you go into these larger dose situations or the larger dose ceremonies, you've done the work, you've done the prep work. And then you also now have the integration work, because microdosing is also a wonderful integration tool. And so, yeah, I sorry, I took it on a different tangent, but I just wanted to share that.
Go for it. No, it's all beautiful. Your tangents are all welcome. One of the things, as I mentioned at the beginning, that really struck me about you, and I have seen you write beautifully in the same way, is just authenticity, the importance of authenticity and self-honesty in medicine work, but also having medicine work become life work,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't have one without the other. They're actually the same thing. So one of the things I so appreciated about you is really the goal of normalizing the beautiful spectrum of emotion and human emotion. Part of the problem is we're so terrified of grief. We're so terrified of rage, and these certain emotions that our society hasn't allowed space for them. And so you've written very, very beautifully about that, just allowing that in yourself. And I think as practitioners and kind of early, I call it like our community, like our transition team, to the future, as anyone who's practicing with these medicines now, I believe are leaders, like it or not, leaders as healers and citizen healers. And so the more we can not just do the medicine practice, but be the medicine practice and be
Mm.
vulnerable and be authentic, not just in our time when we're with the client, but when we are all the time. And so I just wanted to appreciate that in you. And you're welcome to reflect on how you develop this, the ability to be vulnerable, because I think it's contagious and it's courageous.
Mm.
Like when we see that courage in someone else, it really allows people to expand themselves in the same way. So thank you. And if you want to reflect on how you got there.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's a few different ways I got here, and one actually makes me laugh, and you're probably going to laugh when I share that. But originally, like growing, not to get too much into my past, I grew up I had a lot of trauma growing up. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of childhood stuff, trauma. And one of the problems, or one of the things that I did was no one knew about it. Nobody knew about it. Like when I would come to school, the first thing I would do every single morning, this is all throughout high school, I would cry in the bathroom for like half an hour to an hour, go to class with a smile plastered on my face. I was the nicest person in the world. I was this, I was that, I was all of that. And I don't know, just thought that was the way you were supposed to be. And like, I remember when I first realized I had depression, I felt so broken. Like it was just like, oh my goodness, your life is over. And say like, so yeah, I had bouts of suicidality. There's all of these things that happen where like I actually tried to commit while I'm here, so it didn't happen. And then I guess it was just starting to get exhausting. Like being the good girl, especially in my culture, it was like not just, I think this is worldwide, but in our culture, it's like you always have a smile on your face. You always take care of everyone, especially as a woman. It's like you just show up and you do it. So I did that. It wasn't really working for me. And then I had a lot of experiences where at the time were unfortunate. So for example, my dad left, I was early parentified and I had to step into all of these roles. And it was just thrust on me and I didn't really know what to do. And I just remember feeling like, what am I doing? Like I'm suffering in pain, like ready to kill myself, and no one's really showing up for me anyways. And I am with the smile on my face, all of this stuff. And I realized I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. It was just like, I'm done. And so that started the fire. That started like, because I was such a good girl, I was a doormat for so long, that when I came to the realization, it was like this like fire got ignited within me and I was ready to burn everything down. I did burn everything down. I burned everything down in my path. And I'm very proud of it because it was necessary at the time. There is a way to do it now. I know there's a softer way to do it. I didn't know it then. So the second part was actually, this is quite pivotal and I laugh about it all the time. I watched Eminem's 8 Mile. And there's this one scene in Eminem's 8 Mile because I was so insecure. And I have a lot more confidence now, but there's still the insecurity. And I just remember this one scene watching it, and I still watch it from time to time. So it's the rap battle, right? And he's getting annihilated. He is just getting decimated. And then he just goes on stage and he's like, F this. I'm going to show all of my flaws. I'm going to just put it all out there. Come at me. How are you going to use it against me now? So really, it wasn't necessarily a healthy thing because it was quite defensive why I came into this role. But I realized that I'm like, if I own this shit, no one can use it against me. So it was just so powerful in that it was with a lot of anger, a lot of rage, and it was like kind of like I can use my vulnerability as a shield. So it took me a really long time to understand, okay, what am I doing? Thank you, Eminem, for all that you've done for me. And then now, how do I do this in a more healthy way? And then I realized that the more vulnerable I am, there are people that won't like me. And that's wonderful because they do the work for me. If you don't like me, you're just going to stay away from me. Vulnerability now acts as a filter for me, right? So I show up as I am. It's still scary. However, it just makes my life easier. I don't have to do as much work because the vulnerability handles it for me. So yeah, that's kind of where all of that started.
Thank you. I love it. Anytime we can work Eminem into a conversation, yeah. Fascinated.
He's one of my spiritual teachers.
Eminem is your spirit guide. Fantastic. Fantastic. I love it. No, thank you. I mean, that's exactly it. I think we have so few teachers and models and so much ancient indigenous wisdom has been lost around how we truly heal. We've kind of we kind of lost our way. Seriously, like in a big way, 40, 50 years ago, when we kind of got on the pharma train and the siloed, lonely forms of healing models that we have. And when we heal, actually, we see that emotions are a big, big part of it. That vulnerability is a big, big part of it. That allowing is a big part of it. And working with nature's like no human derived thing, and that nature always is rooting for us. Like nature always wants to point us toward our evolution, always, even if it doesn't feel that way at the time. And so when people have these intense emotions, they're clues, if you're feeling anger and rage, what's behind that? That is very intentionally, that's why this emotion is moving through you for a very specific reason. Same with grief, same with fatigue. And so it's kind of bending us back into balance. And once we can look under, like, what is this rage that's been lit inside of me, and see it. And when we can see and work with it and transmute it, we see that anger and rage is actually just passion and energy, which you clearly have in spades with all you have going on. So again, thank you for making time for us. I also wanted to ask you about the role of breath work. Very frequently people, especially people who aren't quite ready to begin medicine practice, like it's calling to them and they're curious, but they're not quite ready to step into that yet. Breath work is one of the things I really recommend, can be a powerful preparation journey to medicine practice. So I'd love for you to speak to that and how you incorporate it into your practice.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Breath work, I like to liken it, get high off your own supply. Why not? Right. So that's what, and just, I mean, I'm saying that jokingly, but what I love about breath work is it brings the awareness of the medicine within us. Like we are, like, if we're all reflections of each other, like what makes the mushroom, what makes the plant, it's in us too. Right. So we're not separate. And so the thing is that, and even though I'm saying this, I'm human, so I don't remember this all the time. And what I find with breath work is it allows us to access that commonality, because we are able to access certain states, both with breath work and with meditation, that the medicine takes us to. And it's hard to deny that we are the medicine when we experience the medicine within us. So that's what I feel like breath work is so beautiful in this space. And also for people that are not able to work with the medicine or not yet ready to work with the medicine, I think it's a powerful tool to help them. That's part of the discomfort process. So even in the preparatory phases, I do use breath work. I don't necessarily use breath work during the medicine ceremony itself, simply because the teacher that I learned with, he made a very valuable point. Well, we can stack it. I haven't worked on that yet. But he's like, they're both very powerful medicines. So introduce people to them separately, and then they can start putting it together. So because of that, I do keep them separate in the beginning phases. But I love using breath to guide the patient into the medicine journey in the preparatory phases, and also to help with the integration aspect of it too. And it doesn't have to take a lot, just a 20-minute breathwork practice, right? Daily or a few times a week, but we just want to go back to it. And then also how we utilize the breath, it also shifts how we process the energies in our body. So then once people start using breath work, I think they start becoming more aware of their own physical breathing patterns. And then that actually helps correct so that's the microdose, that the correcting of the physical breathing patterns. The breath work is the large macrodose journey, and then the awareness that it brings, and then the way we keep continuing to evolve even physiologically, that's the microdosing practice. I don't know if that part made sense, but that's something that for me was pretty profound.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, thank you so much. Looping back to matchmaking for a moment. So one of the things we have seen specifically with mushroom practice, psilocybin is such a relational medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about working with and illuminating your relationship to self, relationship with your loved ones, relationship with nature. And so that's where things, sometimes the movement shows up
Mm-hmm.
most and first. People will say often, oh, I don't know that much is happening, but then things will happen in their relationship and they'll notice how
Mm-hmm.
different they are and
Mm-hmm.
how they react and how they feel in these same situations. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'm different. And so those of us who've been practicing for a while and working in this space know, most of us can go, we're more true to who we really are. But gosh, we're
Mm.
such different people than we were 5 or 10, 20 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
So when we're working with mushrooms specifically, and we are in relationship, say, sometimes oftentimes now people come in and they say, I feel like I am cracking open, and the
Mm-hmm.
medicine practice, it's already happening for me, but once I start mushroom practice, it's just going to go. And it often
Mm-hmm.
does, right? And I'm worried that the person I'm in relationship with is not even remotely there with me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of fear, resistance, hesitation to change, just like humans aren't so good at embracing change,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's for our best. And so I would love for you to speak to, in the context of relationship, romantic and otherwise, but oftentimes it's people's romantic relationships where there's the most friction
Mm-hmm.
and concern about, is this practice going to change who I am?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this actually, my answer is most likely yes. And that's usually what I tell people. And I do let people know about the potentials that come out. And I like to let them know even prior. And it's not to scare anyone off. And if it does scare them off, that's perfectly fine too, right? Because that's what's showing up in that moment. But the intention is the transparency behind it. Because what people are not aware of in this healing, it's a quite destructive process. Like healing is not like this, like, hey, it's all sunshine and rainbows. If it was, then we'd all be doing such a phenomenal job at it. Like it's quite destructive. And that's what I love about the darker energies. And by darker, I don't mean the evil. It's more just the Kali energy, right? Kali is there to literally burn everything to the ground with love, in the sense that it's not working. So then maybe we need to burn it to the ground and rebuild in the same spot. Maybe we need to burn it to the ground and go somewhere else. So the point is, what I start telling people is when we start doing this work, whether with plant medicine, whether with our own medicine, or just whatever the work is, whatever shifts on the inside will shift on the outside. And we don't know what the outside shift or even the inside shift, we don't know what that's going to be. So I like to prepare people that you may notice more friction in your relationship, simply because you're growing in this particular way. This person, and it's bringing the empathy in, right? Because when you change, what we don't realize is our identity changes. The people that relate to us, their identity also has to change on some level. And the more I am in this work, the more I'm compassionate to it. In the past, I wasn't. I'd be like, well, I changed. Why the hell can't you? Well, because I was ready, I was doing work, and they just couldn't, right? Or they're not ready yet. And I noticed I would kind of push that on to people, because it's like, well, look at all the benefit I'm getting. Like, look at me. I'm pretty rad. You should join me. Instead, it's like, well, it took me 20 years to even start seeing these shifts. And I forgot about all the work I did. I forgot about all the times that I was resistant. I forgot about all the time that I just didn't want to do the work. And instead, I'm now pushing my agenda onto them. Right. And so I like to make people aware of this, because I do it. I've done it and I still do it. So then, and simultaneously, I've also had the experience of realizing that, well, either I gave up and I just backed off because I'm like, oh, I'm trying to push this person and they're not doing anything. Or I genuinely there was this wisdom inside of me that showed up, and it's like, that's not fair. Like, what are you trying to do to them? They don't want to go there yet. And so when I took a step back, I found that people like when you lead by example, by just when they see the shift within you. If we can be a little bit patient, it might take, and they may never join, But what I found is if we can be a little patient and we can take a step back, we can provide the autonomy for them to make the decision. I'm saying this, and if my boyfriend was here right now, he'd be like, oh, right. Anyways, but ideal me. And if we can give them that space, they will come to us. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe the human spirit wants to be healthy. It wants the wholeness. It wants all of that. And even if there's some resistance to it, if we start seeing that, oh, this is working for this person, maybe for the first year, they're just like watching you with resentment because it's like, well, you're moving and I'm not. But eventually they might join along if we're softer about it. But if we push them into it, what we're telling them is, look at all the work I did. You're simply not good enough. Right. And so we don't realize the messaging. So I try to work on what is your expectation? What are the potential pitfalls of this? You might break up. You might actually grow into an even more evolved, more beautiful union. We don't know what's going to happen. But most likely, if you do this work and you push it onto the other, you're going to push them away. Instead, if you do this work and just hold space with trust and watch what's happening, right? So you're holding space with trust 10 years, or let's say I like to work in longer term, not like short term, especially if it's long-term relationship. Okay, let's say a year goes by and you're not seeing any shift. It might be a good time to start really wondering what's going on there. And then over time, say you've put in all this work, you've had these discussions, you've asked for what you need and asked for what you want, and it's still not working, then maybe we need to look at different alternatives. Maybe the relationship type evolves, or maybe you step aside from each other. So yeah, and obviously I have to say the caveat is I'm coming in with my own lens of what I want my relationship to be like, and I'm for monogamous long-term relationships. So then my lens is going to come through in the type of work that I do. So I'm also mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very well articulated. We have seen what you just described many, many times over. Yeah, in our community. I would love to, in closing, and this is a very open-ended, invitation to share whatever's calling to you, with the field and the movement happening so quickly, as it should in some ways. Humankind is kind of coming up against a deadline here on Earth. And so there's a reason and a momentum behind it that's very intentional, I think, from nature. But on the other hand, we don't heal at speed, And so I'd love for you to share just where we are in this moment. And, we're recording it when we're recording it, and things are going to change very quickly between now and a short time from now. But I would love for you to your perspective, just from what you've seen, where you come from, what you see happening in the space, kind of what are your biggest concerns and cautions that you would like to be heated a bit, and also kind of what is the brightest light that you see happening in the movement and the field that is worth noting and kind of hitching our stars to?
Thank you for that question, because I don't think we are cautious enough in this space, to be honest, in the sense that what I like to call I always say I'm pretty sure I got this from someone, I don't know who, or I made it about myself. At that point, I'll take credit for it. But be wary of unearned wisdom. And what we don't realize with these medicines is a lot of the wisdoms that especially if we haven't put in the work prior, we get a lot handed to us, and we're just like, what the hell do I do with this? Right? And so it's like unearned wisdom. You can earn it retroactively by doing the integration work. Right. So I'm still unpacking, like my Aya journey was, I think, 6 years ago now. I'm still integrating that. Right. So just like that is really important. And I don't think there's enough. So the be wary of the unearned wisdom is quite big. And I don't think enough of us are talking about it or really shedding light to it. Because what we're doing is we're shouting from the mountaintops, which these medicines, we know it makes us do, right? Because they want to be spread. But we're shouting from the mountaintops without also the cautionary tale behind it. In the sense of like, we don't know what to do with it. So if we increase our awareness without taking action, we're going to start suffering more, right? So that's really, really important. And then the other piece is, well, what it was expected anyways, but turning these medicines into a drug and like kind of pushing it in the form of a drug. Oh, you have depression? Oh, don't take an SSRI. Here, take some mushrooms. And it's like, no, because we're replacing one agent with the other. So I think that exuberance behind it, and I think a lot of the companies that I've left in the past, I gave them that feedback. I was like, you really need to work on your marketing. You really, because what's gonna happen is people are gonna take these medicines with the concept that, oh, I'm gonna take it and immediately my life is gonna be this amazing, like utopia. And when they don't get that, they're gonna be in a worse position from when they started. I'm getting really emotional thinking about this because I've actually personally experienced that, right? Because I'm saying all this from my own experience. I've done all of these things that I'm telling everyone, like, hey, maybe you don't want to do that. So I think those two are fairly large issues in the community, and we really need to be mindful of that. And now so usually when there's a problem, there's also a solution. So I can't be the only person that thinks that way. You can't be the only person that thinks that way. I'm actually starting to see the shadow come up. I love when the shadow starts rising because we can actually look at it now. We can address it, right? So there are people speaking on this. And then there is that model of like competition, like how can we make the most amount of money in the least amount of time and jet out? Because that happened in the cannabis industry. It's happening here with these large names. And then there are people, and this is not to toot our own horn, but I'm going to, because like there are companies like Conscious Mind, Theracil. There's another clinic that's opening up in Abbotsford. I don't know if I have permission to share their names, so I won't. But there are a lot, not just Conscious Mind. There are a lot of these like little guys popping up, right? And so that's where I think my hope is, because the little guys, we have no choice. We don't have like billions of dollars backing us up. By even whether or not we truly felt that desire to connect, we almost don't have a choice, because if we don't connect and band together, we're all going to disappear. So because of that, and also we're just aware of this and we want to do the communal work, there are these companies as well in this space. So I feel like that's a very positive thing. And I think if more people became aware and are able to support the little guys, then we'll all have a say in how we navigate the space. So for example, anyone I'm bringing onto the team, what I say to them is, please don't come on if you're here to just be told what to do. If I have to like micromanage you or tell you what to do, if you're not willing to bring your essence, if you're not willing, then just don't come, because it's more work for me and I don't have the time for that, right? Instead, if you're coming here, you're taking ownership. This is your brand. This is your space. And what happens here, you get to affect. And so I feel like if more of us can go in with that knowledge, because I'm like, I want to hire people that are smarter than me so they make my life easier and I don't have to do as much work, right? And so, yeah, I see a lot of that happening too. So I do tend to focus quite a bit on the shadow because I think there's not enough focus on it. But I'm also starting to see quite a bit of light too. I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, I tend to, whenever I'm hit with kind of a riddle or an impasse, I try to look at things through the lens of nature and from nature's perspective. And that's what nature does. Like anytime something is way out of balance or off, like there's always new shoots coming up and mutations happening and the outlier. Yeah. And I feel like we're in this beautiful time of the outlier where it is great to be in the gray area. It is great to take risks and try new things and different models. And yeah, I think not being part of a corporate structure that is known and familiar gives you an immense amount of liberation and freedom to try and create something completely new and model things completely new and truly sustainable, like truly sustainable in all ways. Yeah. So that it can go on in a lasting way, not just for investors to cash out in the shortest amount of time, which is how things have been structured forever. And so, yeah, I think having a longer, I'm a big proponent of long in almost all things. Like my containers are really long, my expectations are really long. And so I think we have framed all of our businesses and the way we operate businesses in such short-term transactional mindset versus kind of a longer term wheel where sometimes you have more attention and resource, and then other times someone else does. And it's, we've done this before. It's just been a long time and we need to remember, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I so appreciate you. I love your insight. I love your passion, and it comes through very, very clearly in your voice. So thank you for being with us. Is there anything you'd like to share with us in parting? And I'd love for you to share with us how people can find you.
Thank you. I just want to share that I feel quite honored that you asked me to be on your podcast. And I almost said no because I was like, what? Why do you want to talk to me? So yeah, you really helped me work through some of my limiting beliefs and my own imposter syndrome, which I've been coming up pretty regularly, and they come with me in that backpack that I was talking about. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving me the space and allowing me to just kind of own my power. I don't know how else to put it, because I am working on that. And I just want to say, even just a reflection of how you were listening, I felt your presence. We're not in person, obviously, because we're on Zoom. So, and I just your presence was very grounding for me. I wasn't, usually I get quite nervous in interviews or webinars or, but you just held the space so gently. And I just want to say thank you for that. That's really important to me. I'm getting emotional, but yeah, how you can find me. You can find me on, sorry, I think I got too emotional and I was just trying to get back into my body.
Our community can roll with that, trust me.
I'm just what? Okay. Yeah. I'm back here. On Instagram, I'm the integrative nurse. And then also Conscious Mind Clinic. I'm running that page at the moment. And by email, you can email me at Vanathy, VANATHY at consciousmindclinic.com. So that's ways to get in touch with me, even if you just want to say hi, or you can stop by the clinic if you're in the Vancouver area. We always welcome walk-ins. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just come in.
I love it. And Vancouver, you have a gorgeous city. I was there for the first time in the fall and it was stunning. Yeah, it had been a long time on my bucket list of cities I wanted to visit. And yeah, it is just as special as I thought it would be. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, if you do come back, I want to invite you to the clinic. We can just we hang out here sometimes. We throw parties. We're just let's just chill, invite the community. So yeah, you're always welcome to come by.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And follow Vana on IG. She has a beautiful voice there. And that way you can keep up to date with your retreats upcoming, what's going on that front. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Microdosing for Healing podcast. Are you ready to take the next step? Please visit us at microdosingforhealing.com to access our free Microdosing 101 workshop. In it, you'll learn more about our diverse community, our supportive group programs, and discover if earth medicine practice might be right for you. See you in the next episode.